Hello and welcome to the podcast of the Prison Officers Association, the UK's largest professional union for prison, correctional and secure psychiatric workers with over 33,000 members. In this episode, National Chair Mark Fairhurst and General Secretary Steve Gillan review the union's recent annual conference, arguably the most important gathering of POA activists in many years. I started by asking Steve and Mark what the key messages from Conference 2025 were, both for members and HMPPS and government.
Certainly from my perspective, it was about the violence that we were facing, the lack of control within our prison setting. That was identified from the off when Mark opened up annual conference with a powerful speech about a whole variety of issues. But most of the theme was about violence in the prison estate. Got to say, I thought it was a really positive opening. Some of the debates were excellent and a very positive conference from my perspective.
Mark, I'm sure you'd agree that generally, but what do you think the particular messages that, especially guest speakers from HMPPS and government who visited the conference, will take away from their experience?
I think any observer there, especially from the employer and government, will be left in no doubt that our members are really concerned in their workplaces about safety issues, about the way they are being treated by senior managers, about the threat of drones, about the proposals to put unsuitable prisoners in the open estate, and the worry about how that will destabilise a really successful estate, and the increase in the ferocity of attacks on our members in the workplace, which over the last couple of weeks has come close to a murder of our colleagues at HMP Franklin. And only recently, we had a prisoner convicted of attempted murder on staff at Belmarsh and Swaleside. So things are getting worse. And I think the delegates did themselves proud and left people in no doubt how really serious the threat is against them in their workplaces, and things need to change.
I'm sure anyone who saw any of the Facebook feeds of the speeches and was keeping up with the debates will have understood that absolutely readily, that the violence against staff has reached unacceptable levels. Were there any motions or fringe events that you felt had a particular resonance, either to do with that overriding issue of violence to staff or in any other way, Mark?
Yeah, I think we had a really informative speech from Jennifer Rademacher about her review into the culture of bullying and harassment and discrimination and victimisation within the workplace from senior leaders. That can't be ignored. There were 12 recommendations that the employers agreed to, and we won't let them rest on those agreements. We want them in play, implemented in full as soon as they practically can. So that was really good. We had a really interesting fringe on the health and safety protocol, which I thought was really useful to our branch officials so they fully understood the rights of individuals in the workplace. And it was clear to me that through the motions, one particular stood out, which was actually an NEC motion, but the delegate who spoke on it was really, really powerful. And that was to do with, we haven't actually got a policy for mothers who return to work who are breastfeeding. And one delegate got up and spoke about, I had to sit in a toilet and express milk because there was no private place in my workplace for me to do it. And I found that absolutely horrific that in 2025, in the so-called modern prison service, we can't even implement a policy or provide private facilities for returning mothers who have to express milk at work. Absolutely disgusting. It's as if we've gone back to the dark ages. But, you know, you read all these statements from HMPPS, we treat our staff with dignity and respect. Nothing could be further from the truth. So I think it was a really positive conference, as Steve said. It's clear that we've got each other's back. And we will take those motions forward over the next 12 months and do as much as you can to improve the working life of all our members, no matter what setting they work in.
Well, in terms of how the motions that are adopted are processed, we'll come to that in a moment, if I may. But Steve, were there any particular motions or fringe events or particular speeches that caught your ear or eye?
Well, I think Mark mentioned the health and safety protocol meeting which stemmed out of a major dispute at Lindholm. It's a legally binding protocol, and if used correctly, it gives us another, shall we say, issue to hit the employer with. And it's really to avoid injunctions in the workplace. But unfortunately, the employer or governors, not so much the employer, I think the employer from the top down understand it, but local governors do not understand it. And as soon as our members or local committees raise issues in the workplace about their health and safety, the dangers to their health and safety on behalf of the membership, they straight away refer to type, which is, well, you're not allowed to do this because it's a breach of the permanent injunction. It's against the law for prison officers to take any form of action, rather than trying to resolve the main issues. Because the reality is, there's no way on earth that we will repudiate any health and safety issues in the workplace that our members raise with us, and that straight away will bring us into conflict with the government. But I'm very surprised that the Secretary of State, rather than trying to fully understand what issues may be at several establishments where we've been threatened with further injunctions and probably contempt of court, that the Secretary of State doesn't actually want to analyse what actually caused prison officers to leave a particular workplace area. What they tend to do is get government lawyers to write to us to say that we're in breach of Section 127 of the Criminal and Justice Public Order Act. And what we say is, well, this has nothing to do with the Criminal Justice Public Act. This is actually to do with health and safety legislation and indeed the health and safety protocol. So I think there's a massive learning curve there for the employer to make sure that their governors fully understand it. Because we've made it absolutely clear to the employer and indeed to the Secretary of State that we won't repudiate on health and safety grounds. They'll have to drag us through the courts again if they believe that we're outside of the legislation, and we'll explain to a judge why we believe that we're inside. Because it's legally binding, the health and safety protocol, which means it's not just about us adhering to it, it's also about governors adhering to it. So I think that was a very powerful fringe meeting that we had where the employer was actually present. So they understand our frustrations with regard to it. We had Thomson's solicitors addressing the issues, and we're the only ones that have put on training for our branch officials with regards to the health and safety protocol. And that came out loud and clear that there is a frustration, because there was even a conference motion regarding that from Liverpool about how effective the health and safety protocol is. And I've got to say, it was an excellent debate, that one.
And talking of motions, the one from Liverpool particularly, but thinking of all the motions that were adopted by conference, Mark, how does the NEC manage such an influx of new work at this time each year?
So they will be progressed through the Whitley structure. So we have several Whitley committees: HR, health and safety, equalities, operations, security and custody. Those motions go to the appropriate Whitleys, and at national meetings they will be progressed. But all too often when we try to progress the motions, we get the stumbling blocks from the employer. So what will happen at next year's conference, we will provide a report back booklet which highlights the progress we have or haven't made because of various reasons to our members. So they will be fully updated on all matters in relation to 2025 conference at next year's conference. But as I say, we will try our best wherever practically possible to progress those motions, which now, of course, form part of POA policy.
Indeed, and the report back booklet is a vital key in terms of the chain of accountability, so that members and reps and anyone actually can see exactly what action has been taken and where action has been frustrated, why that has been the case. Steve, as delegates left Eastbourne at the end of the conference, what do you think their mood was, given the circumstances in which the conference has been held and what actually happened at the conference itself?
I actually think the delegates were very upbeat at leaving conference. I think they enjoyed it. I think they enjoyed the networking. I think they enjoyed the debates. I think there was a togetherness. You know, I've been around a long time and I've seen some bouncy conferences with lots of internal issues. And I did comment on it in my closing speech that in actual fact, the conferences are getting better and better simply because there is a togetherness and we don't have any navel gazing, as I call it, on internal issues. We actually have a positive agenda that deals with the issues and we can then take them to government and indeed the employer, because we're a united trade union that's getting stronger each year. And I took heart from that. I think there's some excellent young delegates coming through, men and women. I think there's some great experienced delegates still there as well, the men and women that have been around a long, long time. And they give guidance to the younger ones, as does the executive and full-time officers. So I actually think we've got a very bright future if we continue in this vein. So I actually think it was very, very positive, and I think delegates went away knowing, as Mark said earlier, that we've got their back.
And Mark, a similar but slightly different question to yourself, if I may, which is, what was the mood of the NEC and the full-time officials leaving the conference?
I think we're all very heartened by the fact that we are so united as a union and we're in a really good place at the moment. Although working conditions are difficult and violence is once again at record levels, I think as a union on the whole, we are united. We have each other's back. It's great that the NEC realised that the delegates and the branches and the members have faith and trust in what we are doing. And we will never let them down. And we are so heartened by the fact that conference was so positive and there was that unity which was palpable, and that's very welcome.
My thanks to Mark and to Steve. You can find out more about any of the issues discussed in this episode by visiting poauk.org.uk, where there is also all the information about how to join the union should you not already be a member. Videos of the key contributions to the union's 2025 conference can also be found on the POA website. Thank you for listening. We hope you have enjoyed what you have heard and will join us for the next episode of the POA podcast. Thank you and goodbye.